about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Folks, it's been a long time since I put out a podcast. I was doing this regularly. In fact, I was one of the early podcasters back in early 2000s, 2003, 2004, whenever I started. I don't even know what year it was. But I started on Blog Talk Radio and then grew from there. I had a studio here in the town, in Tulsa, the Cityplex Tower. Unfortunately, medical issues got in the way of things. And I had to close the studio down, and it was very difficult to maintain it, of course, with staff and whatever, without podcasting, and of course without sponsors and what have you. So I have now my studio in my home, and I hope to start this thing up again and be on here on a regular basis, at least twice a week, because there's so much to talk about, so many things I want to hear, and I want to hear from you too. My website is libertytalkradio.com. You can catch the YouTubes on there as well as on YouTube. And please, if you want to make a comment, my email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. I am getting particularly disturbed and concerned about our country. If you look at the foundation of our country, and if you look at what our forefathers envisioned, and the way we actually started and held this country together for quite some time, even through a civil war, it's quite remarkable. And today we seem to be unraveling everything. We are not a bifurcated company, we're a trifurcated company or quadruplicated country. Everyone seems to have a different opinion about different things. Now, I'm going to go through in exercise, in programs after this, why I think this is the case, why we are so split. And it has nothing to do with the people, the culture, immigrants, or anything like that. It all has to do with the imposition of government on our lives. And I won't get into that now, but I will get into that in the future. But today, I want to talk about something that's, I think, more urgent. And this urgency centers around the President of the United States. When Donald Trump ran for president, I was skeptical. But when he started to go against Hillary Clinton, I thought, well, the better of two evils, if you will. I wasn't sure of him. I didn't know him. Now, he's from New York City. I'm from New York City, but I was an uptown guy. He was a midtown guy. And I never met him, never saw him, never was in a hotel or anything like that, and actually knew very, very little about him other than his family was very, very wealthy. Well, I did some digging into some of his business enterprises, and it wasn't particularly very remarkable. In fact, it was quite dismal. What I have learned, and I have been in business enterprises, I have failed, I have been dead broke, and I have made lots of money at the same time, all legally, all up and up. Open the books to anybody, who wants to see them. I don't care. But what's more remarkable is that the people that I have on the guests that I have on my program, the likes of the Rick Rules and the Gerald Celentes and all the big names that we've had here, many of whom are billionaires, and some are maybe trillionaires, are open to discussing their failures. In fact, they many times use their failures as a backdrop and a foundation to explain how they arrived at where they are today and why they are doing where they are today. They're not embarrassed about their failures. In fact, they're proud of them. And the reason why they're proud is because they tried. They tried hard. They gave it their all. It just didn't work out. And most people have the same story. I have the same story. I'm not as rich as those guys, but I mean, I have the stories are very, very similar. They're parallel to one another. And they use that as a foundation from which they grew. And then the breaks came in the right direction at the right time. Things congealed, and bingo, they became very, very successful. And they're proud to talk about it. Here's my problem. Donald Trump never fails. Never. He's never had a failure. He's never discussed his failures. And and I know dozens of millionaire and billionaires, dozens of them. And they incessantly talk about their failures, and sometimes they make fun of it, in a way. But in an instructive manner. I don't know of one true, very wealthy person, who does now. And then there's those egotists that'll, everything they do is right. I'm discounting those people. I don't want to know them. I don't have them on my show. They have no interest, and they have nothing of interest to say. But I'm talking about intelligent people who are trying to get a message out to other people, saying, "Don't give up. Keep on going. Life is tough. You'll make it. Keep your focus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And they're absolutely right. But what do we get from Trump? We get from Trump fairy tales. Now, let me give you some background. I did not vote in the last presidential election. In fact, I'm not certain if I'll ever vote again. And let me be honest with you. I don't like what I see. I don't like the whole system. I don't like anything that's going on. I'm afraid for this country. And I think anything that I add to, or every time I give credence to the present system, I think strengthens it. And I don't want to be part of that. I did not vote. However, when push came to shove, and it was Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton, I decided I will take a gamble. I knew, again, very little about Trump. I did very little research. Quite frankly, at this point, I almost didn't care. But I really was rooting for Donald Trump, although I didn't vote for either one of them, none of them, all right? Now, if there was a libertarian running or an independent running that talked about the free market system and the U.S. debt and the overreaching military, I would have voted for that person. I don't care what party he was with, I would have voted for that person, right? Well, I took a gamble on him, and I mean, in rooting for him, basically, quietly. I didn't do anything. I didn't campaign for him or anything like that. And I didn't suggest to anyone that they do campaign for him, all right, that they do vote for him. So he came into office, and shortly thereafter, I took a trip to Chicago, business trip to Chicago, and coming back, I heard that, and I don't remember the details, that Trump did something regarding immigrants coming in, and there was all sorts of confusion. He was legislating the thing 16 ways from Sunday, but I don't recall too much about the details, but everything he did rubbed me the wrong way. And this was right after he got into office, and I'm sorry I don't recall the particulars. And from that point on, I listened to him very closely to see really what he was all about, what his intentions were. And the more I listened, the more I didn't like. Now, he always prides himself by being a very successful businessman. Well, successful business people. Listen, I have a couple of companies. I look at our cost versus benefit on everything that we do. When the bills come in, everything gets paid in. A bill comes in today, it gets paid today. Not tomorrow, today. Everything gets paid. I have no debt whatsoever. And I do that as a discipline. I said, I'd rather be without money. I'd rather not eat than owe money. Now, I know I'm stringent and that's old-fashioned and the whole bit, and I have 30 days to pay, but I do that as a discipline. And anyone, I've talked to anyone about my businesses at any time they want to know something, I'll be more than happy to tell them. I have absolutely nothing to hide whatsoever. Now, and I was broke one time, totally broke, just like all these other guys, totally broke, and they talk about everything they went through. And what I went through is subject for a whole book, not a short broadcast. But he always talks about, how wealthy he is, and he bosses people around like he owns the world. Well, I started to hear things like he had some business failures and so he may not be exactly what he says he is. Well, not long ago on YouTube, there was a listing of Trump failures. Now, these are not the failures like his golf courses, in Ireland, which apparently are now close to bankruptcy. That's why he has his planes stopped there instead of the military base, costing the taxpayers millions of extra dollars and stuff like that. But these are some of them. Trump steaks. He touted that as the best steaks in the world. Well, an independent company that evaluates the level of food and whatever came back with a blistering report on his steaks and how poor they were. And they didn't contain all the things that they said he contain. He failed that. And the thing is, when he fails like in 2 months. I mean, he doesn't give it a try. If it doesn't take off, he just closes it up. Trump steak was only around for a few months. Then he had Trump Ice, bottled water. Trump Ice, bottled water. That lasted about the same amount of time. And they found that the water in there was no better than the water you can find in the sink. I mean, it wasn't very good. It wasn't the top level water, and yet you paid a premium for it. And then the U.S. Football League, the United States Football League, he bought the New Jersey Generals. That went kapoof. Then he started the Tour de Trump. That was like the Tour de France. It was a bicycle ride. I think they had 1 or 2 seasons. I'm not sure. It went defunct. Then he had a digital phone service, ACN phone service, right? Went defunct. And these things didn't last for a long period of time, like they had good times and bad times, and, recession came and, it went bad. I mean, he opened them and they immediately collapsed. Trump board game, never sold. No one was interested. Trump University, and that is subject to litigation at this point, because, and I don't know where it stands, but they found that the people who were teaching there had no qualifications. They weren't professors. They had no licenses. They had nothing. I mean, it was a scam. The whole thing was a scam, and you can look it up. I did not research it in full, but I just got some briefings on it. Trump Magazine, a total flop, absolute total flop. Trump Vodka. And you notice a trend here? They all start with Trump, except for the football team. They all start with Trump. And then Trump Airlines, which was formerly Eastern Airlines. My point is not to blast Trump, but I want our president to be honest with us. I know guys that are incredibly honest and open. They're wonderful people, hardworking. Some didn't make it yet. Some are incredibly wealthy. But you wouldn't know that. In fact, you would think they were failures the way they talk, And I appreciate those people because they're open and honest, and they're always willing to do one thing that Trump never does, and that is to give to others. He doesn't give. He only takes. And then if you look at his personal life, he's been through 3 marriages, and there's all sorts of stories and speculation about all the girlfriends he had on the background and who he paid off. I don't know if that's true, but if I ran for office, people would say, "Oh, Joe has all these girlfriends in the back." Yeah, I go, Yeah, I wish I did, I mean, it would be silly. I mean, I'd say you want to investigate all you want. You won't find anything. I'm with my wife 24 hours a day. I follow her around, But I mean, but he's got this immoral background. He's got this illusion of being rich. And for all I know, he may be bankrupt. There are stories, and there are only stories about him owing foreign countries lots of money. And maybe that's the money that's used to prop up all of these failed enterprises. Well, just forget his name. But if I told you that this was the person that wanted to run our country, would you vote for him? I know I wouldn't. I mean, I didn't vote for him the first time because I was a little skeptical because I didn't know him. Now that I know him, I'm not skeptical anymore. I think the man should serve out his side. Forget about the impeachment. I think he should serve out his term in office as president and give someone else a chance. I think he's in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he's not the person we need to get this place on track again. This thing with the border wall is ridiculous, and I'm going to have a whole program on that someday, and with him taking from one to the other. The debt, he talked about how bad the debt was when he was running for office. Now it's much worse than it was then. In other words, he talks a good game, he just doesn't deliver. Let's hope to God that we make it through the Trump term. Not that he makes it, that we make it through the Trump term. Okay? All right, with this, I want to thank you very much. I hope to do hopefully 2 programs per week. I'll pick out a subject. And if you want to write me, it's comments@libertytalkradio.com. Would love to hear from you. And I think I have a Twitter page and a Facebook. I never use them. I'll be very honest with you. I'm very old-fashioned. Well, I want to thank you very much for listening in. And until next time, I'd like to say that this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support. We don't have no sponsors. We have no sponsors for our financial support. It's all me, and we do wish that you would tune in again, and we will post it on our YouTube channel. All right, thank you very much. Let's see.